All right, so this section of the tutorial is meant to be kind of a quick start guide to creating a quiz based on question banks. So of course, if you need more detail, if you want a little bit more step-by-step, of course, contact me. But I think this will be enough to kind of get you going. All right, so I'm in Canvas. I'm in my sandbox so that I don't have to blur out different students' names and personal information. And I'm under quizzes. So if I go all the way down here to quizzes, this lists where all my quizzes are at. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a brand new quiz. Now, one thing, especially for those of you that have used Canvas before, you're going to notice something new. There is this option. I am recording this around the time where this just got introduced. And from what I can tell, I get the feeling they're still integrating this into Canvas because there are some little things that I didn't like, but I liked it well enough to dig into it. And the fact that they're creating quote unquote new quizzes kind of gets me to feel that they're going to discontinue the other quizzes at some point. So better to be current. So this video is about question banks, but specifically under new quizzes. So I'm going to click that button and then submit. So what I'm going to get is a typical thing you see in Canvas, which is just the details of the assignment or quiz. So I'm just going to title this fake quiz so that I remember to delete this later. And then I'll give it points, let's say 100 points, assignment group, count as points, and all the usual. Now, a lot of these I wouldn't, like submission type, I wouldn't worry about too much, but submission attempts, make sure this is set to limited and 1 attempt. Okay, I mentioned earlier in the intro video about retakes, but this is not where you would do that. If you were to say 2 attempts per person, this would be for everybody in your classes, and you don't want to do that. You want to do this, if you're doing retakes, only for specific kids. So I always set this to limited, 1 attempt only. And then, of course, who am I assigning it to? You put in the different periods. If you're not giving it to all your classes, the due date, and so forth. Okay, and you can even set it to be open and then close at certain dates too. So if you don't want it, like you want the kids specifically taking the quiz at a particular time. All right, and then normally I'd click save, but I kind of did some work ahead of time, and so I've got a different fake quiz kind of ready to go. So I'm going to back out of here. But assume I did that, and now I'm here, and I've got Dave's quiz. And if I click on that, here's the quiz I've started to build. Of course, here I can change the title if I need to. Here I just put in some kind of intro, welcome to your chapter 1 quiz. Make sure you double check your work. Make sure you do all your work on a separate piece of paper and not in your head, whatever. Okay, but that's where the instructions go. And you'll notice I've already entered in a couple questions here. Now, a typical quiz, like I'm sure a lot of you are used to, is that we just add 1 question at a time. So what we would do here is to add a question in Canvas, we just click on one of these plus signs. And you'll notice the couple different plus signs because that tells you where you want to put it. So if I want these next couple questions before these 2 questions, I'll click here. But if I'm going in order and I want my next couple questions after these, I'll click here. Now, this is normally where I would pick the type of question and then create it. But we're not doing that for this video. If you need instructions on that, talk to me. Maybe I can do a separate video, but we're not here about the creating of your basic quiz. We're trying to create a quiz based on question banks. So I'm not going to go there yet. What I'm going to do is up here in the upper right corner, there's these 3 dots. And pretty much the only thing you're going to get is manage item banks. This is where you would go to create and manage your item banks. So I click on that. Now, these are all the item banks that I created for various quizzes and tests. I just labeled them according to what the basic concept of each one. I probably should have been more detailed because some of these are duplicates. But basically, this is where I create a question bank. So in the upper right, I click bank. And let's just keep this simple. Let's say this is a question about subtraction. Okay, and of course, I'd probably be more detailed, but we're just doing this just to get you started. So we create the bank. All right, and it lists it alphabetically, so it's going to be down here somewhere, probably where my face is. There you go, subtraction. And there are no questions in this bank yet. So what we do is now we start creating questions. Now, a lot of choices. Okay, fill in the blank, matching, essay question, multiple choice, true and false. But then there's a lot of others here. File upload, hotspot, categorization, formula. Okay, again, this video is more about the question banks than about the questions themselves. So if you have additional questions about these, just let me know. I'll be happy to help you out, or maybe I can create another video. So I'm just going to stick to the ones that are more what we're used to. Let's say multiple choice. All right, and we get a typical, framework for a multiple choice question. I can give the question a title if I want to. I don't often do that, but I'm going to just skip to the question itself. I'm just going to put here solve. And 4 minus 12. There's my question. And then, of course, here I put in my possible answers. I'm going to make my correct answer here and then check off the little box here so that the computer knows that's the correct answer. And then, of course, I'll put in some distractor answers that, kids might come up with but make a mistake on. All right, so now, oops, didn't type in. What happened? There we go. All right. Now, by the way, I don't even worry about this so much about which one I make the correct answer, because in one of the settings, I like to set it to randomly mix the possible answers. Okay, just in case on the off chance I've got somebody, unfortunately it's happened, a kid who cheats and copies off somebody else, but because the answers are randomized, then of course they're going to get wrong answers. I don't know why my keypad's not typing. Hold on one sec here. There we go. Okay. Now the other options, there's some options here, but again, I don't want to get into those right now. You don't really need them at this point. It's more about the question banks. So I click done. And there's my first question in this question bank. Now, keep in mind, even though I went from the quiz and then into manage question banks, this is not a part of my quiz yet. I'm just in my question banks creating questions, so later I can add them to different quizzes. All right, so that's one, but this is a question bank. I need more than one question to pull from. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick alternative subtraction questions that maybe aren't quite the same as this one. Maybe this time I do an essay question. And maybe I do something like describe as best you can the process for subtraction. So same concept, but a different way to ask the question. And of course, there's all these options here. We're not going to worry about that, but I'm going to click done. So that would be an essay question. They type in their answer. Now, on the other hand, if I'm looking to give them similar questions but not the same, another option is, let's say I want to do one like this. I can do a copy, and then I can copy this question into existing item bank. In fact, the one I'm doing right now, subtraction. And then I'm going to keep a copy in this bank rather than it being moved. Okay, so now I click on that. So I've got a brand new question that's the exact duplicate of the other one, but now I can go in and edit it and just change it ever so slightly. Okay, this of course doesn't make a lot of sense how short this question is, but maybe it's a longer question that I don't have to retype. So let's change it to 10 minus 4. We'll make the correct answer 6, and let's just leave these alone. Done. Okay, so I can add as many questions to this question bank as I choose to. I like to have quite a few. I like to do at least maybe 4 or 5 in each question bank, because this is where where I'm going to have the quiz randomly pull questions from. And so the more questions I have in the bank, the less likely a student is going to get a repeat question on a retake or things like that. All right, but let's say I'm all done. So now I click return. So now I'm back to the quiz, and you'll notice nothing's been added to my quiz. But now let's say I want to make question 3. I've got questions 1 and 2 here, which are also pulling from a question bank, by the way. And so let's say I want question 3, the next one. I'll click plus. But I'm not going to make it from scratch. I already have the questions. I'm going to go to this little piggy bank icon here. That's going to take me to all the question banks I've ever created. Okay, you can see I've got some chapter 2 question banks, chapter 3 question banks, but down here there's the new one, subtraction. Again, it listed alphabetically. Now you can choose particular questions like I'm doing, and you can see over here they get added in. Okay, but the whole point of this for me was I wanted to do random questions. So in fact, let me back out of here. Let me delete those. Okay, but this is an option. Let's say you just wanted to, create your standard quiz, but you had the questions already. You could just pull them out and create your quiz. But what I want to do, the reason for me doing this video is the randomness of it. So again, piggy bank. And then I'm going to click up here, all/random. And you'll notice what it did was over here, it put questions 3, 4, and 5. Okay, similar to what you just saw on the screen, except notice how they're clustered. Because now I can go into those, edit, and here's what I can do. I can either choose to use all the questions, which I don't want to do. That wasn't the point of this video. I instead wanted to randomly select questions. And so now what I can do is say number of questions. I would like the quiz to pull just one question, and let's say it's 10 points per question. So now when the kids take this test, the computer will randomly pull one question out of that subtraction question bank and assign it on that particular quiz. Okay, now the logic being, again, 2 advantages I see. 1, everybody in your class gets slightly different question 3s. Okay, they'll all be about subtraction, but they'll be different versions. And then down the road, if I have a kid who's just not understanding things and has to do a retake test, I can use the same test, but odds are for most of the tests, depending on how many questions are in each question bank, they're going to get new questions rather than the same questions over again. All right, I click done. Okay, and notice how it changed to just question 3 because I'm only asking it to pull one question. All right, and so you just keep doing that. You keep going over here to manage item banks. You create new question banks. And again, this is the hard part. It's a lot of work. But once it's done, it's done. I use these quizzes year after year. And so all the work I put into it, it's been worth it. And then eventually you'll have your quiz all finished. All right, now, some other things. Again, I don't want to get into all this stuff because this is just specifically about random question banks. But let's take a look up here. Up here, you've got 4 different menu bars. Build is what I've been in. I've been building the quiz. But let's take a look at settings real quick. And you'll notice here I've got a couple checked off. Shuffle questions, sometimes yes, sometimes no. I like my quizzes to go in a particular order, so I usually don't do that. I love to click this one off, shuffle answers. Okay, just to make sure that in case I did something like I made every single question, the first answer was the correct one. If I shuffle the answers, then it'll randomly mix them up. Definitely like to click this one. I like the kids to focus on one question at a time, and I do allow backtracking, meaning I want them to go back and check their work or maybe skip over a question and go back to it later. And then, of course, there's other options here. Access code, I don't worry about because they need an access code just to even get into Canvas. I don't set a time limit or the IP addresses. Calculator, kind of depends. But if you want, you can create an on-screen calculator for the quiz or test. Again, I don't like to allow multiple attempts. If you're going to give a kid a retest, you do that somewhere else, which I'll show. And restrict student view, that I do like to do. I like to click this on because I like to wait for all the correct answers to be released. So I usually check all of these, meaning that pretty much the kids won't see anything when they submit their quiz. Now, after the day is over and I know all the kids have taken the quiz, then I can release everything, which includes correct answers with incorrect responses and correct responses. The kids get to see what they put. They get to see what the correct answers were. I don't want that information out until after all my classes have taken it. Okay, so once all my classes have taken it, I can go back in here. I can uncheck that. And then when the kids go back to the quiz, they can see what they got right and got wrong and why. Okay, reports, I'm not going to delve into this video, but there's 2 different types of reports you can pull, quiz item analysis and then outcomes analysis. Outcomes is more about if you've actually, in the build, if you've put outcomes in, like you have certain objectives and targets. And again, with standards-based grading, this might become an important thing. You can link the quizzes to certain standards or outcomes. But then here's the other piece I really like, especially in this distance learning situation, is moderate. I had some of my fellow teachers test this out, so please ignore that. Normally, you would see a list of students here. But what you would see is, in real time, the kids taking the quiz. their score, their time, and so forth. And if I had somebody taking this quiz right now, I could click on their quiz, it would open it up, and I would see everything they're doing in that moment. I can see what question they're on, which questions they've put a response in versus which ones they've skipped. The moment they enter an answer for one, I'll see that in the moderate area. And so I can kind of keep tabs, and it's helped. I've had a few kids where I'm going through and I'm like, and on Zoom, I'll kind of type them a private chat. Hey, you're only on question 5 and you've got 10 to go. Keep an eye on your time. Maybe skip that one. You're getting stuck on one problem too long. Things like that. Or maybe you get that kid, you have that parent conference later and the parent's asking why the low score, and you go into moderate and you can see, oh, hell, Johnny finished a 20 question test in 5 minutes. Obviously, they could have put a little more time and effort into it. Now, while we're here, here's where the other piece comes in. Moderate. These buttons here. If I click on one of these, this is where I give the kids additional attempts. Okay, I can set them to get one additional attempt, and then that way the kid can do a retake. And once again, because this quiz is pulling from a random question bank, their additional attempt will be different from the original. It'll test the same concepts and the same standards, but it will be different questions. All right, so that's a real quick start on the new quizzes. I'm going to pop in one more video, is just for something else that, there's some things that I didn't like, but that you need to be aware of.